everyone. Grandpa Ron here again. Hope you're all having a great day. Today we're going to get back into our very basic Bible study. In this series we're looking at the book of Joshua. And in our last session we looked at how God miraculously held the waters back in the Jordan River so that the children of Israel could cross over to the west bank in preparation for taking over the promised land. And today we're going to look at chapter 5 and see what transpires as they get ready to do just that. So chapter 5, verse 1. Now it came about when all the kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan to the west, and all the kings of the Canaanites who were by the sea, heard how the Lord had dried up the waters of the Jordan before the sons of Israel, until they had crossed, that their hearts melted, and there was no spirit in them any longer because of the sons of Israel. Remember, Rahab had told the spies in Jericho, when they went to spy out Jericho, that the people were already terribly afraid of the children of Israel because of what they had heard had happened over 40 years before, when the Lord parted the Red Sea for them to cross through there and then wiped out the Egyptian army when the sea closed in over them. So surely there were eyewitnesses to that, and was reported, and the people had been living in fear of the Israelites for years because they surely knew that it was a numerous people. There were several million at least by now. So they've been living in fear all that time. And now when they crossed over the Jordan in a similar manner with God's help, now they're really afraid. Verse 2. At that time the Lord said to Joshua, "Make for yourself flint knives and circumcise again the sons of Israel the second time." Now why would he be doing this? Now we're going to read why in the next couple of verses. So Joshua made himself flint knives and circumcised the sons of Israel at Gibeath Haraloth. And this is the reason why Joshua circumcised them. All the people who came out of Egypt who were males, all the men of war, died in the wilderness along the way after they came out of Egypt. So all of the men who came out of Egypt had been circumcised on God's command. There was a way of identifying the Jewish people. It was symbolic in nature. Verse 5. For all the people who came out were circumcised, but all the people who were born in the wilderness along the way as they came out of Egypt had not been circumcised. Now remember, the children of Israel were disobedient in that they would not go into the promised land because they were afraid. They did not trust God. And remember, as we read in our previous studies, along the way, those 40 years, they grumbled and complained, and they had an up and down relationship with the Lord, and that they would not trust Him, and trust Him, not trust Him, trust Him. And the sins of the people were quite apparent during that time. And I would imagine that during that time they ignored God's desire that the males be circumcised, and they just didn't do it. They hadn't done it. Verse 6, for the sons of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness until all the nation, that is, the men of war who came out of Egypt, perished because they did not listen to the voice of the Lord, to whom the Lord had sworn that he would not let them see the land which the Lord had sworn to their fathers to give us, a land flowing with milk and honey. So the Lord had sworn to give this land to the children of Israel. It was a covenant with Abraham, reinforced with Isaac and Jacob. But he wasn't going to let this generation see it because of their disobedience. Verse 7, and their children whom he raised up in their place, Joshua circumcised, for they were uncircumcised because they had not circumcised them along the way. Like I said, a failure to do this, to do what God wanted them to do. Verse 8, now when it came about when they had finished circumcising all the nation, that they remained in their places in the camp until they were healed. Clearly, because a lot of these were adults, it would be quite a number of days for them to heal up. Verse 9, Then the Lord said to Joshua, Today I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you. So the name of that place is called Gilgal to this day. My footnote says that Gilgal means rolling. And the reproach that's talked about here is when the children of Israel wouldn't go into the promised land because they were afraid, the Egyptians must have scoffed and mocked and laughed, what a great God you have. You couldn't even go take over the land. So God has removed that reproach from them. They're cleansed, identified as children of Israel, and they're ready to move out. Verse 10, While the sons of Israel camped at Gilgal, they observed the Passover on the evening of the 14th day of the month on the desert plains of Jericho. And on the day after the Passover, on that very day, they ate some of the produce of the land, unleavened cakes and parched grain. And the manna ceased on the day after they had eaten some of the produce of the land, so that the sons of Israel no longer had manna, but they ate some of the yield of the land of Canaan during that year. So God had sustained them all these 40 years of wandering in the desert. Now that they're actually in the promised land and are eating the fruits of the land, the manna stops. No more manna. Verse 13. Now it came about when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man was standing opposite him with a sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said to him, Are you for us or for our adversaries? Kind of caught off guard here, probably scouting out Jericho, looking at what was going on. He kind of caught off guard. Verse 14, And he said, No, rather I indeed come now as captain of the host of the Lord. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and bowed down and said to him, What has my Lord to say to his servant? Joshua immediately understands that there's something special going on here. Verse 15, And the captain of the Lord's host said to Joshua, Remove your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy. And Joshua did so. The fact that this captain of the Lord's host accepted Joshua's worship is an indication that this was in fact an appearance of the pre-incarnate Christ. Angels would have not accepted this worship. They would have told him, no, don't worship me, you worship God. But here, the Lord accepts Joshua's worship. So that's a strong indication that this was actually the pre-incarnate Christ. And he's got his sword drawn. He's encouraging Joshua. He's going to be with him. And surely this encouraged Joshua and strengthened his resolve. And now he's ready to lead his people into the promised land. We're going to stop there today. We're going to see in the next lesson how they actually enter into the conquest of Jericho and see how that all transpires. In the meantime, God bless. See you then.